About closing inequality opportunities, a situation that's very significant. If it were not for COVID, you know that poverty had dropped down further to 18.7. Within the sub-Saharan African context, only one country is ahead of Uganda in achieving that trend. And I would like to say that we have been able to deliver on gender parity at primary, secondary, and even now at tertiary level. We are closing that gap. And so putting these things in perspective is very helpful. But finally, let me say that, before we answer that the document here is well aligned with some of the strategies, both in the budget and NDP. One, in terms of urban programming, in terms of the digital strategies, and then in transformative education. The digital strategies being proposed here cannot work without foundational infrastructure. And so you'll appreciate that government is delivering the last mile connectivity in terms of the national backbone that will facilitate all this online and digital engagement we are talking about. And also in terms of new methods of learning, e-education, e-healthcare, these are all issues we are having to adopt as part of our lessons from COVID. And then lastly, that the budget we are preparing now for 22-23 is a budget that has been framed as a redistributive budget. And it's important that we acquaint ourselves with the dimensions of that redistribution, including the uplifting of the 39% of households that are in the subsistence economy. But to your specific question about balancing investment in human capital as a necessity for equalizing opportunities vis-a-vis the context within which the economy is. The point to note is that as our strategy, Uganda is at a tipping point in terms of its transition in structural transformation. We are now opening new segments of the economy. You are all familiar with what's happening in our oil and gas sector. But also to say that the discussion around debt needs to be understood from an investment perspective. The return on investment from the spending we've put in roads, energy, internet connectivity is now beginning to pay off. I'll give you a very basic example. During COVID, Uganda displaced 2 countries from the Italian market in the coffee segment. That is India, and I think the other one was Chile. And we were able to deliver coffee at a level that we have never achieved since independence. That would not have been possible without the investments that preceded that period of time, which is investing in seedlings, investing in extension of irrigation and extension services to the people. Who grows coffee in Uganda? 122 district local governments out of 146 are coffee growers. The average coffee holder is about 2 acres. And so what I'm saying is that the theory of change behind closing inequality gaps must be something we keep at the fore. So when we talk about taxing the rich, it is also important to understand the partnership between the rich and the poor, because it takes capital to mobilize opportunity, sometimes on a national scale. We recently listed MTN on the stock exchange, and the regular Ugandans became shareholders, owners of this company. That would not have been possible if we had not mobilized MTN as an FDI into this country. And so before we point fingers and hit the hammer, on these other initiatives, there is a very strong correlation. We talk about Umeme. The largest owner of Umeme is NSSF. Who is in NSSF? It's you and me. That's our money. And so let's strengthen these ties. And I just want to say that this budget we are putting in place, we have spent a lot of money making sure that we can safely reopen the schools, making sure that vaccines are rolling out and that schools are in a position to reopen. Many private schools have had a capital squeeze, and so the public sector is absorbing many of the children who cannot go back to that school. And so delivering on learning materials, but just making sure that the facilities that these people are going to receive the necessary boost is a priority in this coming budget. So just to confirm to you that we are responding to the changing context, we are adapting. One of the big reforms in the coming budget is automation of government, okay? And so we are saying as part of closing opportunities, you know, how do we skill and train the women groups, the enterprises, to be able to take advantage of the e-procurements we are bringing to speed. The PPDA, the procurement law was amended to introduce, what do we call it? It's like a quota system where the small people in business and affirmative action can be taken. So working with civil society, we should be now facilitating these women groups, the youths, to be able to structure themselves to participate in these spaces that e-government is making possible. My last comment is that we are modernizing as a country, and we need to separate between the shrinking civic space and structuring our civic space. It's important that as we address informality in Uganda, that does not stop in businesses. The way we organize as civil society should also transition from informality, you know, and we up the game. That is part of modernizing society. And so that structuring of civic society is not limited to NGOs. We are having conversations with private sector umbrella associations about the need for them to engage government in a more structured way. And I think we should welcome some of the reforms in that positive light. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph Enyimu. I think we need another whole discussion about some of these things. I like the choice of words. Don't talk about shrinking civic space, talk about structuring civic space. I think that's very critical. The only thing is that government should be open to being criticized, to being talked about, and that space should be as liberalized as possible if we're going to make these shifts. And I'd love to have an engagement on how you help that person with 2 acres of coffee to produce better quality, to improve to 5 acres, and yes, and the investments in MTN and Umeme and elsewhere. We'll discuss that at another opportunity. But thank you very much, and our compliments to the PSST, and thank you very much for representing the government. Can I now move to Ms. Pavin Ngala, Regional Director at Oxfam, to give us brief remarks? Yes, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Please confirm that you can hear me okay.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. One of the things I wanted to pick up from the representative of the Ministry of Finance statement was strengthening ties. I think that's an important takeaway from his input. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, Oxfam Country Director, Francis Adokarach, our chief guest, the UN Resident Coordinator, Ms. Namundo, really all protocols observed. Thank you very much to everyone who is joining us in person. It's definitely great to hear of the discussions, makes me actually want to have been there. But also those who have joined virtually, I'm sure all of us have really benefited from the discussions today. We are really honored to be here as Oxfam in Uganda launches its new country strategic framework that goes all the way, will guide our implementation in Uganda all the way up to 2030. I really also just want to recognize the work that went into the development of this strategy, the engagements with our partners. And if there's anything that has come from today's deliberations, it's that we also expect our partners to continue holding us to account on our role in Uganda. So well done to the team in Uganda, Webale. I just wanted to highlight a few things as we talk about the launch of the Uganda Country Strategic Framework in terms of why we are celebrating this milestone. One of the major celebrations for us is, of course, the fact that it is a reflection of our thinking at the global level, at the regional level, but also connected very much to the reality of our work in Uganda. The Global Strategic Framework, which Francis also referred to, focuses very much on the fight against inequality, but of importance is it puts the centrality of people power in achieving these needed changes. So that's really important. So we see this reflected in the commitment outlined in the strategy to see a peaceful and resilient society where people's rights are upheld and state and non-state actors are responsive and accountable. It also does, as has been called upon in the deliberations today, it puts women and youth who are really pivotal in our communities at the center of our development agenda. So that's really great, colleagues. Ladies and gentlemen, the other thing that I want to celebrate in terms of why this strategy is really important to us is that it's very responsive to our most recent realities in the region. The crisis that we are facing emerging from conflict, climate change, but more so the impact of the COVID pandemic. As an example, Uganda continues to be at the center of one of the issues we're dealing with substantively in the region, which is the refugee crisis. At the moment, Uganda is hosting over 1.4 million refugees. And at the global level, we have the Global Compact on Refugees. And in Uganda, this is represented in the form of the Comprehensive Refugee Response Framework, which is really a model in the region and actually globally on a sustainable approach to supporting refugees, working with refugee-led organizations, and connecting to the national development agenda. It is reflective of the systems approach we advocate for in Oxfam by responding to immediate needs, promoting localization, but also addressing the drivers of this crisis that we see in the region around conflict and climate change. 2 weeks ago, my colleagues Nabil indicated, was talking about the East Africa Commitment to Reducing Inequality report that we launched, which really spoke to how the COVID pandemic has taken the region many steps back from the little progress we were making. The fact that we saw in the region a 2.7% drop in the GDP was really concerning. The fact that we see that over 60% of citizens, mostly women, lost income and livelihoods. And the fact that we see that our governments are strained, reflected in the level of debt that is increasing, in terms of being able to resource the type of investment that is needed for healthcare, for education, for food security, social protection, was really a big concern. The representative from the Ministry of Finance alluded to the issue of, the progress that Uganda had already made before the COVID pandemic. But indeed, that we saw even in that report that COVID-19 reversed this. And at the moment, 2.6 million Ugandans were being pushed back into poverty as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has exacerbated inequalities. So from the reflections today, and indeed just bringing together what we see reflected in the Uganda country strategic framework and what we expect will be a lot of work going on, are the deliberations around fair taxation, improved domestic resource management, good governance and accountability, policies that are reflective really of the segments of the population that need to be supported, the evidence building that we need to work on, and indeed the role of the different actors. I hope indeed we can continue to unpack this over the course of the strategy implementation period. I want to laud the Uganda team, the Uganda strategic framework, in looking towards the future, especially on inclusive and accountable governance systems, ensuring that vulnerable and marginalized people are economically empowered and having resilient livelihoods, that those who are vulnerable to crisis are living in safety, security, resilience, and dignity, and that women and girls from vulnerable communities are empowered, enjoying their rights and living in dignity. My final urge to all of us in the room or even virtually is that we seek the support of our great partners, the government, civil society, local organizations, the United Nations, private sector, media, academia, indeed, all the people of Uganda, as we work towards the achievement of the vision presented in the Uganda Country Strategic Framework. As the African proverb says, alone you can go fast, but together we go farther. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we give another round of applause, a stronger one than we gave at the beginning? Ms. Ngala, can I request you to also invite for us our chief guest to speak to us?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think this is a good segue, especially like we said, our connections are important to invite the UN Resident Coordinator, Ms. Susan Namundo, to help us launch this country strategic framework, but also give her insights on the ties that we need to have within the Ugandan context. Ms. Susan Namundo, welcome.
Thank you very much. As you can see, I'm not Susan Namundo, but very honored to speak on her behalf. Maybe I should introduce myself. I'm Daniel Alamu, the Deputy Representative for UNFPA Uganda. Let me maybe remove my mask. So it's really a pleasure to be here with all of you today for a very refreshing discussion. And thanks, Francis, for extending the invitation to the UN family. Let me start by just recognizing the colleagues and dignitaries in the room. So first, of course, Excellencies, heads of diplomatic missions and delegations, the regional director of Oxfam, country director, government representatives here present, UN colleagues, civil society representatives, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I'm very honored to deliver these remarks on behalf of Ms. Susan Namundo, the UN Resident Coordinator, and the UN system here in Uganda. And of course, Ms. Namundo presents her apologies for not being able to make it for this important launch. So let me start by congratulating, first of all, Oxfam Uganda for having successfully completed the formulation of their country strategic framework 2021-2030 under the title of Together Against Inequality. We are pleased to acknowledge that the CSF is aligned, of course, to the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. There is no doubt in our mind that it will contribute to the decade of action declared by the UN Secretary General for accelerating efforts to achieve the SDGs, which of course coincides as well with the CSF period. The CSF also reflects the aspirations of the Third National Development Plan, NDP3, Uganda's National Vision 2040, and the strategic priorities articulated in the United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework for Uganda, UNSDCF 2021 to 2025, signed by all 29 UN agencies here in Uganda. The UN recognizes Oxfam's commitment to addressing issues of inequality in Uganda, especially through analytical work to identify those who are likely to be left behind and the impact on society and program interventions that target the vulnerable and advocacy work that helps to speak for the voiceless. We are pleased that this strategic direction has been maintained in your new country strategy, which aims to address issues of high teenage pregnancies, land evictions, job losses, business closures, as well as advocacy for vaccines for all, including the refugee population here in Uganda. These are directly responding to the challenges of today, as well as their impacts on the future of the country. The Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated, as you all know, existing inequalities across the world, and Uganda was no exception, leading to reversals in progress towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. In Uganda, young people were particularly affected due to loss of jobs and other opportunities in the midst of limited social protection systems for this group of Ugandans who are the majority of the population. This dictates that the UN and other development actors need to be more agile in responding to the fast-evolving development challenges. In September 2021, the Secretary General of the United Nations launched his report, Our Common Agenda, including recommendations for meaningful, diverse, and effective youth engagement, both within and outside the United Nations. As part of this direction, the UN system in Uganda has adopted youth as a joint flagship area with the aim of empowering adolescents and youth in Uganda to unleash their full potential and help, of course, Uganda achieve the demographic dividend. The pandemic has also worsened already existing social challenges in Uganda, such as gender-based violence and teenage pregnancy. In response, the UN family has agreed to work jointly towards addressing the issues that are likely to deepen gender inequalities. The proposed UN Joint Program aims to consolidate the achievements registered by the Spotlight Initiative, a European Union-funded program implemented in 8 African countries, including Uganda. This initiative, which commenced in Uganda in 2019 and expected to continue beyond 2023, focuses on eliminating sexual and gender-based violence and harmful practices of child marriage and female genital mutilation, as well as strengthening the linkages between GBV and sexual and reproductive health and rights, and the linkages between GBV and violence against children more broadly. As I conclude, I would like to pledge the UN system's commitment to continue collaborating with both state and non-state actors to contribute to the objectives of the Country Vision 2040 and the Third National Development Plan. We must work together against inequality to indeed ensure that no one is left behind in our collective quest to achieve the SDGs. Thank you very much.
Can we give another big round of applause to Mr. Alemu, not Susan? Thank you. So we're going to request you to perform one last function for us, which is to launch the country strategic framework. I'd like to request the country director and the team at Oxfam, please help us with the launch protocols. I'm going to also request some members within the audience to join you to do the formal launch. So I expect that we'll be joined there by the representatives from Buganda Kingdom. I'd like you to come up and join the guest of honor as we do the launch. Mr. Joseph Enyimu, please come and be part of this exercise. Anna, please, you need to be part of this launch. My panelists who are here, you also need you up. Mr. Douglas Asim, I think, has moved. So Anna from the Embassy of Ireland, Miss Anna from the Embassy of Ireland, Deputy Head of Cooperation at the Embassy of Ireland, I need you up here. Monica Achiru from the Deputy Attaché, Development Cooperation, I think, at the Embassy of Belgium, I need you up. Miss Marina, please, if you could join the chief guest. We'll stand here and that will be the launch area. Ms. Rita Chiro from UONET, panelist. Dr. Fred Muhumuza, a panelist. I think there'll be an unveiling of the strategic framework, and then after that, we'll sign, starting with. I think, Julius, you should join the team there doing the launch. Julius Mukunda from CS-BUG. I've seen members from the Uganda Small Scale Industries Association. If you're close, you could join in. Let's do the photo op, the unveiling. Should I count down? Do we count down? Do you join me? The guys on that side. At the count of, we'll count down from 3 to 1. 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much, sir. If you could sign on to that dummy of the strategic framework, starting the chief guest, the country director, the guests that are present, PSST, Miss Marina, could add your signature. Uganda Law Society needs to come closer, sign on that. Thank you very much. Let's have more of us come and sign the dummy. A few announcements from Oxfam as we come to the end of our activities this afternoon. I'm going to request the guests, my apologies, I'm going to request the guests, the chief guest and the team that you're with to stand in front here. We'll have a group photograph with a few more people. Sorry to have to ask you to come back. A group photograph over here. Colleagues from the media, this room has been spared for, someone help me to organize the group photograph here. Someone help me to organize the photograph here. Miss Claudia, Marina, Miss Kilkenny, Rita, the team, please come back kindly for the photo op. Colleagues from the media, there's an interview room that has been prepared at this room. We'll do some interviews there for clarifications and speaking to some of the people been here. That will happen in Addis room immediately we walk out of here. And then there is lunch for all of us. The lunch is both a sit down and a stand up to allow us to continue networking. So as we move out of here, we'll be guided by the team from Oxfam on where we can do our lunch. It's both a sit down and a standing and a stand up. I'm hoping that everybody is vaccinated, and the meaning of fully vaccinated has been shifting, so I hope you're fully vaccinated. But also there's been guidance that we're moving faster back to normal. Sophia has been a major driver of the situation we find ourselves in. Thank you very much once again, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give another round of applause to our guests. Let's give a round of applause to the team at Oxfam Uganda for delivering this strategic framework framework. And let's give another round of applause to ourselves as the audience for having been a wonderful audience for this morning. Thank you very much to everybody. Lunch and departure at leisure. Thank you very much.
A society where everyone can sleep without worrying about their food for tomorrow, work and have money in their pockets, where women and girls live free from all forms of violence. A society where children can enjoy equal
Lunch is just on this floor as you get out of here, as you move towards the steps leading you to the lower floor, opposite Addis room. That's where lunch is being provided. Please reach out, have lunch, interact, network, meet people you haven't met. And then after that, we can depart. Let's make the connections from here. Thank you very much to the Uganda Small Scale Industries Association for being present here. We appreciate your partnership and all the partners. Thank you very much to the people who are joining us online. Thank you for being with us, and thank you very much to everybody.
Utilized. Utilized. Can you imagine a Uganda where small and big businesses imagine living in a Uganda free from poverty and inequality, a society where everyone can sleep without worrying about their food for tomorrow, work and have money in their pockets, where women and girls live free from all forms of violence, a society where children can enjoy equal opportunities to education, where the potential of youth is utilized. Can you imagine a Uganda where small and big businesses thrive, where farmers delight in the produce of their land, and you and everyone is able to live and enjoy their rights? This Uganda is possible. Over the years, Oxfam in Uganda and its partners have tackled the root causes of poverty and inequality, demonstrating positive possibilities for change. For the last 5 years, we have worked hand in hand, reaching over 21 million people through campaigns and influencing key policies, delivering appropriate humanitarian response and supporting women and youths to increase their food and incomes. Total direct reach, 4,036,111 people, 56% were women. In the year 2015 to 2016, we reached 550,000 people, 57% were women. In 2016 to 2017, we reached 599,638 people, 59% were women. In 2017 to 2018, we reached 1,054,114 people, 50.3% were women. In 2018 to 2019, we reached 1,157,399 people, 55% were women. In 2019 to 2020, we reached 674,960 people, 60% were women. This would not have been possible without the support of our partners, donors, allies, and supporters. We rallied the public to push for increased spending on social sectors such as health, while rejecting proposals on increased taxation. Our work on women's rights has shifted debates and opinions on social norms and other barriers that affect women's empowerment. We supported women and young people to generate higher incomes through improved skills in enterprise development and value addition. We linked farmer groups directly with private sector actors, obtaining higher prices for their produce. We delivered humanitarian support to South Sudanese refugees in the North and West Nile and Congolese refugees in Chaka alongside their host communities. This included water, sanitation and hygiene facilities, gender and protection interventions, emergency food security and vulnerable livelihoods work, and non-food item distributions. We collaborated with local governments and humanitarian actors to plan and respond better to crises and advocate for increased direct financing from international donors to support refugees. We contributed to the government of Uganda's comprehensive refugee response framework and the championing of the localization agenda. Through our campaigns, we built stronger networks and movements that influenced and shaped public debates on unpaid care work, tax, and public spending. We are convinced by our experience, lessons, and the changes we have witnessed in these communities that change is possible, but it needs an enabling environment for it to happen. That's why in the next 10 years, our new country strategic framework will focus on challenging the systems that perpetuate inequality and injustice in Uganda. Practically, we will focus on 4 interconnected areas, addressing a range of issues from governance to humanitarian, gender justice and women's rights, and the resilience of communities. We have made some shifts along the way that will allow us to tackle the new contextual challenges. 1. The distinct pillar on gender justice and women's rights will allow us to work with multiple demographics like adults and girls and young women. 2. We will undertake urban programming. 3. We will work better with our partners on co-creation and joint leadership of our influencing work. 4. We will promote education that enables learners to know their rights, practice critical thinking, and use their voice to challenge and change the status quo. 5. We will embrace digital integration, tapping into the power of vibrant, innovative youths across Uganda to build strong movements against poverty and injustice. And 6. We will embrace an integrated approach to programming. In all we do, we seek to ensure that our programs are safe for our staff, partners, and the target communities. We commit to work more effectively with others towards achieving a Uganda free from inequality and injustice. Join us in our renewed commitment as we work towards a Uganda that is injustice-free and equal.